The top games of 2016. Now, 2016, in my opinion, was a pretty fantastic year for games. And originally, when I was going to make this video, I thought about doing a top 10 list, but after doing some more research, looking through all the games that I played this year, I realized that there are way more than 10 games that deserve some love and attention. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so the first game I want to talk about of 2016 is Firewatch. Firewatch, along with some other games that I have on this list, are a perfect example of where I think the gaming industry is sort of pivoting to. Firewatch is a great example of a very story-driven experience. It's the best one that I've played to date. It's a very short game, a beautiful color scheme set in Wyoming in the 1980s. From the second you open this game, you feel like you're dropped straight into an interactive Bob Ross painting, and I am so in love with it. A lot of the mechanics are kind of clunky, which is upsetting, but it's sort of given with a low-budget walking sim like this was. The story is incredible. It's gripping, it's maniacal, it's pretty fucked up actually. By the end of the game, the exposition, wraps up with a nice little mindfuck bow on the top of it, and you're sort of left sitting there listening to an emotional radio call followed by silence, visions of fire, and some serious emotional just strain. It's wonderful. If you haven't played this game, I strongly recommend playing it. So the next game I want to talk about is a game called That Dragon Cancer. So this game, I originally heard about this game through a podcast that I listened to, and I had no idea it existed. But once I found it, what I stumbled upon was very touching, based on a true story actually. A real boy by the name of Joel was diagnosed with cancer, and his parents, in an effort to cope with the situation, began to develop this game, which is told largely through actual stories experienced by his parents with a very experimental, blocky, just different art style, and different in the best possible way, and it is really gripping. It is really worth checking out if you have not already.
And the warm, wet tongues and the cool.
The next game on this list is a little difficult for me to talk about because it's a racing game, and I've never been a big fan of racing games. However, Forza Horizon 3, a racing game to beat all racing games. Forza Horizon 3 brought elegant user interferences, really smooth gameplay, and incredible physics together to the deceptively immersive continent of Australia. I was so impressed with this game. I've never really cared for racing games, like I said, at all, but this game made me care. I would also like to point out the really wonderful customization options in the game. As somebody who is an engineering student, that really stood out to me, all the different things you can do. And from my understanding, I went back to some research, that is a pretty relevant feature in all the Forza games. So hands down, wonderful game, best racing game I've probably ever played. The wonderful qualities of this game still remain true. However, there's no real sense of direction to the game, which, for me was a little upsetting. Granted, I know it's a racing game. It's not like there's supposed to be a real story to it or anything, but it was kind of difficult for me sometimes to drive across barren landscape or through cities, through like apartment complexes and shit, just to get involved in a race or something. It was kind of tedious at times, but I was able to look past that because of just everything else about this game that just fucking brings it. It's awesome. So next on the list is Hyper Light Drifter. It is impossible to forget this little gem of a game. This game was like Zelda meets Broforce meets fucking Blood Dragon. I mean, wow, it was awesome. Really intense visuals and an incredibly touching and worthwhile story. I do say, as a member of the community of people who sort of support indie games online, this game was a little bit overhyped for me. It is incredibly good, one of the best games I've played all year, but it was being sold to me as like the best game of all time and stuff like that. And it's wonderful. It's an incredible experience. One of the most beautiful games I've played in a long time. This year, 2016, had a lot of really visual, intense games, which I'm not complaining. I love them. I think they're awesome. Games like The Witness, Firewatch, what I talked about, Abuva, and Hyper Light Drifter, as well as Owlboy and some other really cool indie games that explored sort of low resolution, not necessarily low resolution, but low end graphics. Like, they're not super 3D, they're not super realistic, but they're still beautiful. They're wonderful and expository, and The graphics of this game tell a story all to itself. The atmospheric creation of Hyper Light Drifter alone makes it worth checking out. Next we have XCOM 2. Playing XCOM 2 is best described as an RTS interpretation of what the best X-Files episodes you've ever seen would be. It is a very military-based, heavily interactive RTS. You can't really sort of just let this game play you. You have to sort of take the wheel and make some decisions. It's incredibly immersive for an RTS. I was really surprised when I first picked this game up how much time I actually spent playing it. Normally I'll play an RTS for a couple of hours, set it down, pick up another game, go do whatever. But this game was something that I was playing back to back to back for like days at a time. It was insane. There's a very steep learning curve to this game if you've never played XCOM games before. If you've never played any RTS before, obviously it'll be difficult to get into this one. However, you can learn. It's not impossible to learn. It's just difficult. There are a lot of different mechanics to the game, which that's part of what makes the game worth playing. It's complex, and it's not easy to learn all those complex features in a short amount of time. So put some effort into this game, and it will most definitely reward you with some awesome gameplay, some really cool, just kind of goofy alien and awesome military things. So check it out, XCOM 2, if you haven't already. Next on the chopping block, of course, in the realm of the first-person shooters, Battlefield 1, the champion of all Battlefield games, period. World War I. Battlefield 1 came out swinging. Initially, the demo response was sort of negative, that it was very buggy, which is understandable. EA is sort of known for using demos to be demos and let people find problems with it, as opposed to releasing something that's sort of already made. But by the time the full game came out, wow, it was beautiful, it was awesome, incredible landscapes, incredible mechanics, a very driven story. I was not expecting that big of a story from Battlefield game. Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 both fell a little bit in the story mode. The campaign of Battlefield 1 was a whole new era, a whole new realm, lots of new things to explore, different sects of the war too. I mean, it wasn't just focusing on one particular area, which I really enjoyed a lot. It gave more perspective to the war versus World War I history books and games that you know already, and that was really interesting to me. On the online side of things, again, usual awesome Battlefield mechanics, wonderful team-based, very modern feeling, even though you're shooting, crank guns and riding horses and shit. It feels like it's a very modern game, despite back-to-back shooters. We have Titanfall 2, possibly one of the most well-rounded shooting games I have ever played. Extremely fast-paced. It was never a dull moment in this game. Incredibly interactive. It's another one of those games that you sort of have to play. You can't let it play you. But this one's really easy to use. It's really easy to get into. I had never played Titanfall 1 before. Maybe like bits of it, like maybe at a friend's house or something. But this, I bought this game and I picked it up right away. I understood all the mechanics. It was wonderful, and it's painfully addicting. Titanfall 2 has very little to criticize. Multiplayer and the single-player aspect. This is another first-person shooter game that was sort of marketed on the online side of things, but also came with a very well-rounded package of wonderful story. Dark Souls 3. If I had a nickel for every time that I violently screamed obscene remarks at From Software and just Dark Souls 3 in general while playing through this game, I would be a millionaire. Incredible action, insane atmosphere and visuals, and just a ton of asshole enemies. They're far too common in this game. This game definitely does not have a lot to criticize. It was beautiful, it was wonderful, it was dark, it was menacing. It's definitely worth the stomach ulcer I got from stress. One last shooter that I have to show some love to this year is Overwatch. Overwatch is a game that you think you can just sit down and play one, and the next thing you know, it's 3 a.m., you have an exam in 5 hours, and you're opening fucking loot boxes, testing out new skins for your Pharah. Dangerous, this one. Very dangerous. Overwatch filled with awesome mechanics, really, really, really contrived maps and characters. I mean, Blizzard did not hold back when they modeled their characters, when they modeled their maps. Very little glitches in this game, very good user interface, very, very easy to learn and play. One of those games that you can, if you have 10 minutes downtime at work or at school, you can literally sit down, play a game of Overwatch, and then go about your day. But at the same time, you can go home after work or school, sit down and play Overwatch for 10 hours straight, and have it feel like 5 minutes. It's wonderful that way. Also, it has one of the best, most supportive communities in online gaming that I have seen in a very, very long time, which was incredibly refreshing for me. Next up, Stardew Valley. What is Stardew Valley? I have recommended this game to a lot of my friends over the course of the year, and none of them seem to know what it is. Is it Harvest Moon on steroids? Is it a farming sim? Is it a mining sim, a walking sim, a fishing sim, a dating sim, 8-bit fucking wizards, aliens, train robbery, farming, fighting, fishing, mining, you name it, this game has definitely got it. It's honestly a pretty bitter adventure story following a character who's discovering themselves while processing the instructions and wishes of a beloved grandfather, learning the secrets of the world, the fucking universe, all while learning how to successfully grow some parsnips. Next on the list, Uncharted 4, a game that probably has the least wrong with it this year, and I say that in the most positive way. The finale, big question mark there, of the Uncharted series, following Nathan Drake with his not-so-dead brother, which none of us knew about until now, question mark again. But it's a really, really epic adventure game. Lots of action, lots of emotional, scenes, lots of witty banter, which is always fun in the games to sort of lighten the mood, sort of lightheartedness. Incredibly stunning graphics. This game, I've never really been one to rate games like from worst to best or whatever, but if I was, this game would certainly be near the top of a lot of lists. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go into detail about any more games, but I am going to list off a few more games that if you have not checked out this year already, I highly recommend you check these out before diving into 2017. A lot of these games are shorter, a lot of these games are longer, a lot of these games you can download and play a lot of them at the same time or pick them up, but regardless, you should at least check them out if you have the time. So, without further ado, we've got Abuzu, another really good visual-based story game, Planet Coaster, Civilization 6, Fury with an I, that's F-U-R-I, another really good story game, Doom, the recreation of the beloved first-person shooter, Super Hot, which was, in my opinion, the first game to really explore the powers of VR, the Hitman series, a reboot, in quotes, I don't know if it's a reboot, of the beloved Hitman games, Far Cry Primal, not the best installment of the Far Cry series, but definitely worth checking out. Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, another one of those little indie games that sort of came out of nowhere and really came out swinging. Rise of the Tomb Raider, another great installment in the Tomb Raider series, probably one of my least favorite of the Tomb Raider series, of the recent Tomb Raider series so far, but still actually a really good full game. I was really impressed with that series in a whole. Pokemon Go, I have to show some love to that game. That game came out this year, just swinging. It did not hold back at all. It was one of the most popular games of the last ever. Incredible response from that game. So check it out if you haven't already. And lastly, I want to mention The Witness, another one of those very visual story, not even story-based games. This game is very reminiscent of games like Myst, adventure, sort of mystery, but still beautiful, interactive game worth checking out. So that's all I got for this year, 2016. Thanks for an awesome year. It was very fun, very sort of up and down for me, very sort of up and down for the video game industry. Mostly ups this year. There were a lot of wonderful games that came out this year, as we have discussed in the last 10 minutes or so. Thanks again for watching this video. Again, this is a subjective list of games that I think were the best of the year. There were a lot of games to cover this year, a lot of games that I wish I could have talked about more, but just didn't have the time to. So if you are so inclined and want to have a discussion about some games, you leave a comment. I will definitely have a discussion with you about some games. I love talking about video games. It's one of my favorite things. They're a really amazing form of art and should be appreciated like that. So if you want to talk about some games or yell at me because my list was shit or whatever, I don't give a crap. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, whatever. I don't care. It's your life. Do whatever you want. But be sure to check back at The Woodsy Tiger Gaming. Follow me at The Woodsy Tiger Gaming on Twitter. Check out my Facebook page. All the other good stuff like that. So here's to 2017. Let's make it a fucking great year.